The text message cost me everything. Or at least that's what I thought as I watched the driver's illuminated face through her windshield, her fingers still tapping away while my body slammed onto her hood. Time didn't slow down like they say in movies. Instead, it fragmented into brutal, crystal-clear moments that would haunt me forever. The sound of my helmet cracking against her windshield. The flash of panic in her eyes when she finally looked up. The sickening sensation of sliding down the slick hood, desperately clawing for anything to hold on to. Then the impact, the real one, as my body hit the pavement beneath her SUV. I don't remember screaming. The witnesses later said I did. What I do remember is the primal instinct that made my right hand shoot up and grab the axle as my backpack snagged on something underneath. The rough asphalt shredded through my cycling jacket as she kept driving, oblivious to the fact that she was dragging a human being beneath her vehicle. 60 feet. That's how far she dragged me. Each second was an eternity of burning pain and the deafening sound of my body being scraped across the pavement. I could smell my own blood, taste it in my mouth. The rational part of my brain, the geologist, the scientist, was already cataloging my injuries. Broken collarbone, shattered ribs, my spine taking damage with every foot of pavement. Then the screeching of tires. A man in a pickup truck had seen what was happening. He drove the wrong way around the traffic circle and cut her off, forcing her to stop. As her SUV finally halted, I started wiggling out from underneath, my shoulders emerging first. That's when I heard her voice, the nurse who had witnessed everything. "Don't move," she said firmly, kneeling beside me. "I'm a nurse. You're in shock. You need to stay still." I wanted to tell her I was fine, that I could just get up and walk away. But when the paramedic touched my neck, the pain that shot through my body was so intense that my scream echoed across the intersection. That's when reality hit me. I wasn't walking away from this, not this time. In the ambulance, through waves of agony, I heard fragments of conversation. Multiple fractures, spinal trauma, collapsed lung. The EMT's face swam in and out of focus as they fought to stabilize me. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning. In less than 72 hours, I would be on an operating table, my heart would stop for 2 minutes, and everything I believed about life, death, and reality would be forever changed. But first, I had to survive the night. I grew up on a small family farm just outside Chicago, where the cornfields stretched endlessly into the horizon. Our farmhouse stood like a lonely sentinel among those fields, and it was there that I first encountered what I could only describe as the divine. I was different from my siblings in ways that both delighted and concerned my deeply Catholic parents. At age 7, I would spend hours sitting beneath the ancient oak tree in our backyard, telling my mother about how I could feel God's presence in its branches, how the rustling leaves spoke to me in a language beyond words. She would smile uncertainly, her rosary beads clicking softly between her fingers as she listened. My father, a practical man whose faith was as structured as the rows of corn he tended, would gently remind me that God lived in the church, not in trees. But I knew what I felt. During Sunday Mass, while my family focused on the priest's words, I would watch the dust motes dancing in the colored light streaming through the stained glass windows. To me, that light held more divinity than any sermon. My parents worried about my unconventional spirituality, though they never discouraged it outright. They simply tried to channel it into more traditional expressions of faith. By age 12, I had earned a reputation in our parish as the child who asked too many questions during catechism classes. Why does God let bad things happen? If God is everywhere, why do we only pray in church? The nuns would exchange glances, their answers becoming increasingly strained as my questions grew more complex. Then came 1993. I was 15 when the first headlines broke about priest abuse scandals in the Chicago area. At first, it was just whispers, rumors that my parents dismissed at the dinner table. But soon the whispers became shouts that couldn't be ignored. Names I recognized, faces I knew, priests who had blessed me during communion, who had heard my confessions. The foundation of my world began to crack. Not because I lost faith in God, at least not immediately. What broke first was my trust in the institution that claimed to represent Him. I watched my parents struggle too, their unwavering faith tested for the first time. My mother stopped clicking her rosary beads quite so often. My father's prayers before meals grew shorter, his voice less certain. By 16, my questions had changed. They weren't about the nature of God anymore, but about the nature of belief itself. How could an institution that claimed divine guidance harbor such darkness? The oak tree in our backyard no longer whispered to me. The dust motes in church became just dust. I threw myself into science with the same passion I had once reserved for spiritual contemplation. Physics, chemistry, and eventually geology, these became my new scripture. The immutable laws of nature replaced the uncertain promises of faith. In the laboratory, everything could be proven, tested, verified. There was comfort in that certainty. College was my exodus. I left behind the farmhouse, the oak tree, and the last vestiges of my childhood spirituality. My parents watched with quiet resignation as I pursued my degrees in geology, each scientific achievement taking me further from the path they had envisioned for me. During holiday visits, they no longer asked if I'd attended Mass. They accepted, if not understood, that their mystical child had transformed into a rational scientist who saw the world through the lens of empirical evidence. By my mid-20s, I had built a reputation in the geological community for my rigorous research and uncompromising dedication to scientific methodology. My papers on sedimentary formations were praised for their meticulous attention to detail. I took pride in being known as a skeptic, someone who demanded proof for every claim, no matter how small. The final thread connecting me to my spiritual past snapped when my grandmother died. Standing at her funeral, listening to the priest speak of heaven and eternal life, I felt nothing but a clinical detachment. I analyzed the psychological comfort these rituals provided rather than participating in them. My mother noticed, and after the service, she touched my arm gently. "Nancy," she said, "I pray that someday you'll find your way back to God." I responded with a kind but firm smile. "Mom, I've found my way to truth instead." How ironic those words would seem years later, as I lay trapped beneath an SUV, my scientific certainties about to be shattered in ways I could never have imagined. Success, by conventional standards, had become my constant companion. At 46, I held a prestigious position at the Department of Energy, where my scientific papers were routinely published in leading journals. My expertise in geological formations had earned me invitations to speak at international conferences. Colleagues sought my input on their research, knowing my reputation for precise analysis and uncompromising standards. Yet beneath this polished exterior, fractures were forming in my carefully constructed world. My marriage, a partnership built on shared intellectual pursuits, had crumbled under the weight of unspoken expectations and divergent paths. The divorce papers arrived with the same clinical detachment I had cultivated in my professional life. I signed them without emotion, treating the end of my marriage as another data point in life's empirical study. The move to Boulder, Colorado, was meant to be a fresh start. The city, nestled against the Flatirons, offered both professional opportunities and the promise of personal reinvention. I purchased a modern apartment overlooking the mountains, filled it with minimalist furniture, and established a routine that emphasized efficiency above all else. My days followed a precise pattern. Morning runs along carefully mapped routes, hours in the office analyzing geological data, evenings spent editing scientific manuscripts. The local scientific community welcomed me, impressed by my credentials and body of work. On paper, everything appeared perfect. But in the quiet moments between meetings and research sessions, an inexplicable emptiness would surface. It manifested in small ways. The way I would sometimes pause while writing a paper, staring at the mountains through my office window, feeling a strange disconnection from the very science I had devoted my life to understanding. I attributed this unease to post-divorce adjustment and threw myself even deeper into work. When colleagues suggested I might be pushing too hard, I dismissed their concerns with well-reasoned arguments about the importance of maintaining professional momentum. The morning of the accident, I had been contemplating a job change, not because I needed one, but because I thought a new position might fill the growing void I refused to acknowledge. The bike ride was meant to clear my head, to help me approach the decision with my characteristic analytical precision. Instead, it became the moment when all my carefully maintained certainties would shatter against the unyielding surface of a reality I had never allowed myself to consider. The December morning presented itself with pristine clarity, the kind of winter day that makes Boulder irresistible to cyclists. The air was crisp, the sky an uninterrupted expanse of blue. I had meticulously planned my route, as I did with everything in my life. The library first, then a circuit around the city's northern trails. The traffic circle where everything changed was a familiar landmark. I had navigated it hundreds of times before, understanding its rhythms and patterns. As I approached, I noticed the bike lane narrowing, a detail that always required careful attention. The morning traffic moved with its usual predictability, until it didn't. The first indication of danger came from my peripheral vision, a black SUV entering the circle from the highway exit. Standard protocol dictated that vehicles should yield to traffic already in the circle. I observed the vehicle's trajectory, making rapid calculations about speed and distance. The driver appeared to be slowing, following the expected pattern. My decision to proceed was based on years of cycling experience and an understanding of traffic dynamics. But in that critical moment, variables I couldn't control intervened. The SUV accelerated unexpectedly, defying the predicted behavior pattern. The driver's face, illuminated by the blue glow of a phone screen, remained focused downward. Impact occurred at precisely the point where evasive action became impossible. The collision launched me onto the vehicle's hood, with sufficient force to crack my helmet against the windshield. The driver's expression transformed from distraction to horror as she finally looked up, but her foot remained on the accelerator. The descent from the hood occurred in distinct phases. First, the desperate attempt to maintain position, my hands seeking purchase on the smooth surface. Then, the inevitable slide downward, my body surrendering to gravitational force. The impact with the pavement brought an immediate understanding of severe trauma. What followed defied conventional time measurement. My backpack became entangled in the undercarriage, and survival instinct compelled my hand to grasp the axle. The asphalt became an instrument of systematic destruction, methodically removing layers of protective clothing and skin. The intervention of the truck driver demonstrated remarkable tactical thinking. By circumventing normal traffic patterns and positioning his vehicle as a barrier, he forced the SUV to stop. The distance traveled during the dragging, later measured at 60 feet, created a timeline of continuous tissue damage and skeletal trauma. The initial medical assessment occurred simultaneously with my attempt to extricate myself. The nurse who appeared at my side exhibited textbook crisis management, preventing further injury by restricting movement. Her voice carried the authority of professional experience, overriding my own incorrect assessment of my condition. The paramedics arrived with efficient precision. Their initial examination revealed the extent of the damages: multiple fractures in the cervical and thoracic vertebrae, compound fractures of the ribs, a collapsed lung, and extensive soft tissue damage. The methodology of their trauma response followed established protocols, each action designed to stabilize and preserve vital functions. Transportation to the trauma center proceeded under carefully controlled conditions. The ambulance interior became a mobile emergency room, each bump and turn requiring compensatory measures to prevent further injury. Through waves of intensifying pain, I maintained consciousness, my analytical mind still attempting to catalog and categorize each new sensation. The final assessment at the trauma center would reveal the full scope of necessary interventions. Surgery became an immediate priority, scheduled for 72 hours hence, allowing for initial stabilization and preliminary healing. The operating room presented itself exactly as one would expect: sterile, efficient, filled with the precise choreography of medical professionals preparing for a complex spinal surgery. As the anesthesiologist approached with practiced confidence, I experienced an unprecedented level of fear. Despite my lifelong dedication to rational thought, the prospect of unconsciousness brought forth a primal terror of death that no amount of scientific understanding could quell. The anesthesia took effect rapidly, and I anticipated the familiar gray nothingness of previous surgical experiences. Instead, consciousness expanded in an unexpected manner. The first notable deviation from standard surgical unconsciousness manifested as an acute awareness of existing in a state of heightened clarity, surpassing normal waking consciousness. My initial location appeared to be a sunlit meadow situated on a gently sloping hillside. The landscape extended into rolling mountain ranges, each successive ridge diminishing into a distant horizon. The environment possessed a quality of profound familiarity, despite its clear departure from any physical location I had previously encountered. The most significant aspect of this experience centered on an overwhelming sensation of acceptance and belonging. The feeling manifested as a tangible force, comparable to standing before a radiating heat source, yet it encompassed emotional and psychological dimensions beyond physical sensation. This profound sense of welcome initiated a comprehensive reevaluation of my established worldview. A presence materialized gradually, taking on a form best described as feminine, though lacking distinct features. The interaction occurred primarily through direct understanding rather than conventional dialogue. This entity communicated with remarkable clarity, conveying complex concepts without the limitations of verbal language. The examination of my life proceeded in an unexpected manner. Rather than a chronological review, events appeared as interconnected moments, displayed across what resembled a vast nautical chart. Each intersection represented a decision point, with paths branching outward in multiple directions. The significant revelation lay in observing how seemingly minor interactions created far-reaching consequences. A particularly poignant moment involved revisiting a teenage conflict with my sister. The experience transcended mere memory, allowing me to perceive the full emotional impact of my thoughtless words on her developing sense of self. This new perspective revealed the profound ripple effects of our daily interactions, demonstrating how casual unkindness can resonate through years of someone's life. The educational aspects of this experience proceeded systematically, each lesson building upon previous understanding. The presence guided me through various scenarios, illustrating the interconnected nature of human experience. Professional achievements, which had previously formed the cornerstone of my identity, appeared remarkably different when viewed through this expanded perspective. Time operated according to unfamiliar principles in this state. What seemed to encompass months of learning and experience occurred during approximately 2 minutes of clinical death, as I would later learn. The distinction between physical time and experiential time became increasingly irrelevant as the lessons continued. A significant portion of the experience focused on examining the nature of consciousness itself. My scientific background proved both an asset and an obstacle. While it provided a framework for understanding complex concepts, it also required substantial reconstruction of fundamental assumptions about reality. The presence demonstrated how consciousness extends beyond physical limitations, using my own experience as immediate evidence. The clarity and coherence of thought I maintained, despite my body's temporary cessation of function, presented a direct challenge to my materialist understanding of consciousness. When the moment of return approached, I experienced marked resistance. The presence explained with gentle firmness that my return had been predetermined, part of a larger plan I had participated in creating. This concept proved particularly challenging for my scientific mindset. Yet the truth of it resonated at a level deeper than intellectual understanding. The presence shared final insights regarding the purpose of physical existence. The primary objective, she explained, involved learning to maintain connection with deeper reality while navigating physical limitations. This apparently simple concept contained layers of profound implications for daily living. The return process initiated despite my protestations. The presence placed her hands on the areas of my physical injuries, a gesture that would later prove significant in my recovery process. The transition back to physical consciousness occurred more abruptly than the initial departure. Upon regaining awareness in the recovery room, I experienced significant emotional distress, manifesting as vocal protests about returning. The medical staff initially attributed this behavior to anesthetic reactions, unable to comprehend the profound nature of what had transpired during those brief minutes of clinical death. The experience presented numerous aspects that challenged scientific explanation. The clarity of consciousness during physical death, the compression of subjective time, and the retention of complex information all defied conventional understanding of brain function under oxygen deprivation. The coherence and consistency of the experience, coupled with its transformative impact, demanded serious consideration despite its departure from established scientific paradigms. This event constituted a direct challenge to my previous certainties about consciousness, reality, and the nature of existence itself. The implications extended far beyond personal belief, suggesting fundamental revisions to our understanding of human consciousness and its relationship to physical reality. My return to consciousness in the recovery room manifested as a violent protest. The medical staff later described how I awoke screaming, demanding to return to her. The recovery room nurse, a veteran of countless post-surgical awakenings, visibly startled at the intensity of my reaction. My desperate pleas to go back confused and concerned the medical team, who attempted to attribute my behavior to standard post-anesthetic delirium. The anesthesiologist arrived promptly to assess my condition. His practiced calm provided a stark contrast to my emotional state as he checked my vital signs and attempted to orient me to my surroundings. Despite his professional demeanor, I detected uncertainty in his expression as I continued to reference experiences that transcended typical surgical unconsciousness. The physical pain from my injuries reasserted itself gradually, drawing my attention back to corporeal reality. The surgical repairs to my spine and ribs manifested as intense discomfort, yet this physical distress seemed remarkably insignificant compared to the profound sense of loss I experienced upon returning. A hospital chaplain visited my room the following morning. Her arrival proved providential, as she possessed both the experience and openness to comprehend the magnitude of what had transpired. When I described my experience, she listened without judgment, offering validation rather than interpretation. She introduced me to the term near-death experience, providing context for what had occurred. My physical recovery progressed at an unprecedented rate, confounding the medical staff's expectations. The predicted 16-week recovery period compressed into just over 4 weeks. The surgical team attributed this acceleration to successful procedure execution and my overall physical condition, yet I recognized a deeper correlation with the healing touch I had experienced during my near-death state. During this recovery period, I maintained detailed journals documenting both my physical healing and psychological transformation. The analytical skills I had honed throughout my scientific career now served to document and process an experience that defied conventional scientific explanation. Each entry reflected my attempt to reconcile my empirical training with undeniable personal experience. Visitors remarked on the marked change in my demeanor. Colleagues who expected to find me frustrated by physical limitations instead encountered someone possessed of unusual serenity. My responses to pain and setbacks demonstrated a perspective that transcended mere stoicism, suggesting a fundamental shift in my relationship with physical discomfort. The attending physicians conducted regular assessments of my cognitive function, concerned about potential neurological impacts from the accident and subsequent surgical intervention. Their evaluations consistently revealed not only intact cognitive function, but enhanced clarity and integration of complex thinking, contrary to typical post-trauma patterns. My return to daily life necessitated a fundamental restructuring of priorities and perspectives. The transition manifested initially through small but significant changes in routine. Each morning began with a period of quiet reflection, replacing my former habit of immediately checking work emails. These moments of stillness became essential, allowing integration of my profound experience with practical daily existence. Professional colleagues observed marked differences in my approach to work. Where I had previously pursued scientific inquiry with aggressive skepticism, I now demonstrated a more nuanced appreciation for unexplained phenomena. My research papers retained their technical precision but incorporated broader considerations of interconnected systems and long-term implications. The Department of Energy provided accommodations for a graduated return-to-work schedule. During this period, I redirected my analytical skills toward understanding the intersection of empirical science and subjective experience. My publications began incorporating elements of systems thinking and holistic analysis, earning unexpected recognition from peers who appreciated this expanded perspective. Relationships underwent significant transformation. I initiated contact with my sister, addressing our past conflicts with newly acquired insight. Our reconciliation developed gradually, marked by honest conversations about shared experiences and different perspectives. Family dynamics shifted as I engaged with my parents' religious beliefs from a position of understanding rather than dismissal. My approach to daily challenges demonstrated fundamental change. Traffic delays, which previously provoked frustration, became opportunities for practicing presence. Professional setbacks transformed from sources of anxiety into occasions for reassessing priorities. Colleagues remarked on my enhanced ability to maintain composure during organizational crises. Physical recovery continued beyond medical expectations. I integrated regular meditation into my exercise routine, noting improved stamina and faster healing. Regular walks in nature replaced high-intensity training, allowing time for integration of physical and psychological insights. My relationship with my body shifted from one of control to one of partnership. The scientific community presented both challenges and opportunities. Select colleagues expressed interest in my experience, leading to meaningful discussions about consciousness and scientific methodology. Others maintained professional distance, uncertain how to reconcile my changed perspective with established scientific paradigms. I learned to navigate these dynamics with diplomatic skill, maintaining professional credibility while honoring my experience. My living space underwent deliberate transformation. The minimalist apartment evolved to incorporate elements of natural beauty and personal meaning. Books on consciousness studies joined geological texts on my shelves. The view of the Flatirons took on new significance, serving as a daily reminder of larger perspectives. Professional focus shifted toward integrative approaches to scientific research. I developed methodologies incorporating both quantitative data and qualitative observations. This balanced approach attracted attention from unexpected quarters, leading to collaborative opportunities with researchers exploring consciousness studies and human experience. The most profound change manifested in my relationship with uncertainty. Where previously I had demanded definitive answers, I now appreciated the value of open questions. This shift enhanced both personal relationships and professional capabilities, allowing for more nuanced analysis and genuine connection with others. Documentation of this transformation process became a private project, filling journals with observations and insights. These records tracked the integration of extraordinary experience with daily reality, providing reference points for continued growth and understanding. Medical documentation from the trauma center provided empirical validation of specific aspects of my experience. Hospital records confirmed a period of clinical death lasting approximately 2 minutes during the spinal surgery, corresponding precisely with the timeline of my conscious experience. The surgical team's documentation noted unexpected physiological responses during this period, including marked changes in brainwave patterns that deviated from typical surgical unconsciousness. Post-operative recovery metrics demonstrated healing rates that exceeded standard medical projections, particularly regarding spinal fusion and tissue regeneration. The attending physicians maintained detailed records of my cognitive function throughout the recovery period. These assessments demonstrated not only preservation but enhancement of mental acuity, contradicting typical patterns observed in patients following major trauma and extensive surgical intervention. Professional colleagues in the medical community expressed particular interest in the correlation between my reported experience and documented physiological changes. Several members of the surgical team provided written statements regarding the unusual aspects of my case, specifically noting the rapidity of physical recovery and the clarity of cognitive function during the immediate post-operative period. The implications of my experience extend beyond personal transformation, offering insights applicable to broader human experience. The integration of analytical thinking with deeper awareness demonstrates the possibility of bridging seemingly opposed perspectives in professional and personal contexts. Direct application of these insights manifests in improved decision-making processes. The practice of conscious presence, even in challenging circumstances, enhances both personal effectiveness and professional performance. Regular periods of reflection prove essential for maintaining perspective and facilitating sound judgment. The recognition of interconnected consequences in human interaction emphasizes the importance of mindful communication. Professional relationships benefit from increased awareness of long-term impacts, while personal connections deepen through authentic engagement and genuine presence. The experience demonstrates that significant life changes need not compromise professional rigor or analytical capability. Rather, expanded awareness can enhance analytical skills by providing broader context and deeper understanding of complex systems. My journey from skeptic to integrated professional serves as a template for maintaining balance between empirical observation and experiential wisdom. This synthesis offers a model for others seeking to reconcile seemingly contradictory aspects of human experience while maintaining professional credibility and personal authenticity. The enduring message remains clear. Transformation of perspective need not diminish effectiveness, but can instead enhance our capacity for meaningful contribution in both professional and personal spheres. In the midst of our carefully constructed lives, our careers, our routines, our certainties, we often forget to question what truly matters. Like many of you, I spent decades building a life that looked perfect on paper. Prestigious career, academic achievements, and the respect of my peers. I was the embodiment of the American dream, or so I thought. It took a devastating accident and 2 minutes of clinical death to show me what we're all too busy to see: that our relentless pursuit of success often comes at the cost of our deepest connections, with our families, with our true selves, and with something greater than our individual achievements. To those of you working 60-hour weeks, missing your children's games, postponing calls to aging parents, or letting relationships drift away in pursuit of the next promotion, stop. The greatest regrets shared by the dying are never about missed meetings or unfinished reports. Your expertise, your drive, your analytical mind, these are valuable gifts, but they're tools, not the purpose of your existence. True success isn't measured by your portfolio or position, but by the depth of your connections and the authenticity of your presence in each moment. It shouldn't take a near-death experience to wake up to what matters most. That opportunity is available to you right now.